The story opens at the Wailing Wall, Jerusalem, in 1934. A boy hurriedly brings breakfast to the greatest detective named Hercule Poirot, who will be the main character in this film. There is a commotion because a valuable relic has been stolen, and several religious figures are involved. However, the police can't find any evidence of the missing item. Because of this, Hercule Poirot is called to investigate the case. Hercule Poirot finds a small clue, a crack from the step of a shoe. From this, Poirot knows that the perpetrator is not one of the religious figures, but the police officer. With this evidence, Poirot finds the valuable relic in the police's office. Knowing he's been discovered, the police plans to escape. But with Poirot's plan, the police is successfully caught. After solving the case, Poirot heads to Istanbul for a vacation by ferry. On the ferry, he meets a doctor named Dr. Arbuthnot and a geography teacher named Mary Debenham, who seem to know each other. Shortly, Poirot arrives in Istanbul. There he meets his friend named Bouc. Bouc tells Poirot that he will be the operational director on a luxury train called the Orient Express. Unfortunately, Poirot's vacation is delayed again because a policeman requests Poirot to solve a case in London. Because of this, Poirot asks Bouc to board the Orient Express to London. We are then introduced to the passengers of the Orient Express. Marquez, a successful car dealer. Pilar Estravados, a cold missionary. Ratchet, a successful businessman. Masterman and Hector McQueen, Ratchet's personal servant, and Rudolph Andreni, a famous temperamental dancer, and his wife Elena. Poirot also meets Mary Debenham and Dr. Arbuthnot again. The train staff includes a conductor named Michelle and a wealthy widow named Mrs. Hubbard. Because all the cabins are full, Poirot has to share a room with McQueen. The train also carries other characters like Princess Dragomirov, a wealthy widow from Russia, her personal assistant named Hildegard Schmidt, and Gerhard Hardman, a German professor. Finally, the train departs from Istanbul. During the journey, Ratchet receives a threatening letter, making him fearful. The next day on the train, Michelle brings breakfast to Poirot and mentions that McQueen will be moved. Everything goes well and smoothly on the train, with each person having different characteristics. At one point, Professor Hardman complains and behaves racially, but he is reprimanded by Mary. During the journey, Ratchet starts a conversation with Poirot. Ratchet offers Poirot a job to protect him until they reach a safe place, because due to his business, Ratchet has many enemies and even receives threatening letters. However, Poirot refuses the offer, even when Ratchet points a gun at him, because Poirot knows that the items Ratchet sells are fake and that he sells them to the mafia. Therefore, Ratchet must face the consequences. After that, Poirot leaves Ratchet. At night on the train, Poirot places a photo of a woman named Catherine in his case and reads a book. He hears a sound from Ratchet's cabin. Michelle checks on Ratchet but receives a suspicious response. Since it is late, Poirot decides to sleep. Suddenly there is another noise, and he sees someone in a red kimono passing by the corridor in front of him, but Poirot thinks it's nothing unusual. Suddenly, bad weather causes an ice avalanche, derailing the Orient Express. The train cannot move. The next morning, all the passengers gather in the bar and are reassured by Bouc, who says that help is on the way. After that, Masterman brings breakfast to Ratchet's cabin, but Ratchet does not respond. Fortunately, Poirot is there and senses something is wrong. He tells Masterman to call Bouc and Dr. Arbuthnot. After examining the body, Arbuthnot determines that Ratchet was stabbed multiple times with an estimated time of death, around 2 a.m. At that time, Michelle was monitoring their cabins, and Ratchet's cabin was locked. Due to this incident, Bouc asks Poirot for help in solving the case, as he fears the police will likely accuse someone based on race or skin color. He doesn't want that to happen. Poirot finally agrees to solve the case. After gathering all the passengers, Poirot informs them that Ratchet was murdered and that Poirot will be solving the case because he is the best detective in the world. Poirot advises each passenger to stay in their cabins for their safety, as the murderer is among them. Poirot starts interrogating each passenger with Bouc accompanying him. Bouc is proven innocent as he was in another carriage. The interrogation begins with McQueen. McQueen says he is Ratchet's secretary. According to McQueen, Ratchet couldn't handle business or do anything on his own, so McQueen handled all his tasks. Additionally, McQueen mentions that he is a law graduate, but from an out-of-state university, making him very bad at it. McQueen also shows the threatening letter to Poirot. After that, Poirot and Bouc examined Ratchet's body and discovered that Ratchet had been drugged with a substance called barbital to prevent him from fighting back. This was evident from Ratchet's lifeless body lying in bed with a gun next to him. They also found an expensive woman's handkerchief with the initial H. Additionally, they found a piece of burnt paper. At the same time, help arrived for the train. Poirot then held the burnt paper over a flame, revealing that the victim's real name was Cassetti, who played a significant role in the Armstrong case several years ago. The story reveals that a famous pilot named John Armstrong had a happy family with his wife Sonia and their young daughter Daisy. One night, Daisy was kidnapped while she slept. In desperation, they paid the ransom, but shortly after, Daisy was found dead, having been killed by Cassetti, who is also known as Ratchet. Sonia received the news while she was pregnant, which led to her and the baby's death. Poirot wanted to help, but unfortunately was too late. Unable to cope with all the problems, John Armstrong eventually took his own life. After recounting this story, Poirot continued his investigation and found a button from a conductor's uniform. However, it did not belong to Michel. Poirot then interrogated Masterman and learned that Masterman had a thyroid condition and only had a few months to live. Poirot then interrogated Pilar Estravados, Hardman, and Marquez. From their interrogation, it was revealed that Pilar was the last person to see Ratchet alive, and that she wakes up easily since being startled by an unspecified event. Additionally, it was revealed that Marquez used to be just a driver. Poirot then interrogated Mary Debenham, who denied knowing Dr. Arbuthnot. Poirot also asked about their conversation on the boat earlier, but Mary refused to explain. After that, Poirot interrogated Princess Dragomirov and her assistant Hildegard Schmidt. Dragomirov mentioned her admiration for Sonia's mother, Linda Arden, and since her daughter's death, she became a protector for Daisy. Dragomirov also stated that she was Daisy's godmother. When Poirot questioned her assistant, Schmidt said that she had seen another conductor in their carriage, but there was no other conductor besides Michel. From there, Poirot searched for the conductor's uniform and the red kimono. They opened all the passengers' suitcases, but the red kimono and the conductor's uniform were found in Poirot's suitcase, along with a cabin key, revealing how the murderer could enter Ratchet's locked cabin. The key and the uniform smelled of alcohol, making McQueen the prime suspect. However, McQueen fled the train, causing Poirot to chase him. Poirot successfully captured McQueen and brought him back to the train. McQueen was then re-interrogated, and it was revealed that McQueen had been embezzling money from Ratchet. But he did not kill him, as there was no reason to kill his own source of income. This was confirmed by Dr. Arbuthnot, who stated that he was with McQueen at the time of Ratchet's death. After that, Poirot interrogated Dr. Arbuthnot. He stated that he was a former military officer and was funded through medical school by an officer. Despite the difficulties for certain races at the time, Dr. Arbuthnot also mentioned that he knew Mary Debenham, which was different from Mary's previous statement, making him suspicious. However, Dr. Arbuthnot defended Mary. Poirot then explained that McQueen studied law because his father was a famous lawyer who was responsible for the Armstrong case. At that time, McQueen defended a maid named Suzanne, who was accused and eventually committed suicide. As all the evidence pointed to Ratchet or Cassetti, McQueen's father was judged by many, which made McQueen unable to bear it. Shortly after, Mrs. Hubbard screamed because Mrs. Hubbard had been stabbed by the murderer. Fortunately, she survived. Poirot returned to the bar where all the passengers were gathered. Bouc mentioned that the train could start moving again the next morning. From there, Poirot interrogated Rudolph Andrigny and his wife Elena. It turned out that their cabin had a lot of barbital, which they used as a sleeping aid and to cope with fear. Poirot realized that her real name was actually Helena, who was actually Sonia Armstrong's sister. Hearing this, Rudolph Andrigny immediately expelled Poirot from the cabin, assisted by Professor Hardman, who carried a weapon. Poirot also uncovered Hardman's secret, who was not a German professor but a detective, and now disguised as Ratchet's bodyguard. After that, Poirot returned to his cabin and spoke to a photo of Catherine, admitting that he had reached a dead end. The next day, Poirot met with Mary again and asked her opinion on a few matters. Poirot said that all the passengers on the train had lied to him, including Mary, who was Daisy Armstrong's teacher. Poirot accused Mary of being the culprit. Mary admitted this, and suddenly Poirot was shot by Dr. Arbuthnot. He said that he killed Ratchet and told Mary to leave. Dr. Arbuthnot also said that Armstrong was his friend and commander, and he had financed his medical education. Fortunately, when he was about to shoot Poirot, he was saved by Bouc. Poirot then began to reveal the end of this case. Dr. Arbuthnot was a close friend and subordinate of Armstrong. Mary was Daisy's teacher and a close friend of Sonia's sister, Helena. Princess Dragomirov was Daisy's godmother and the owner of the handkerchief with the initial H. Hildegard Schmidt was Dragomirov's assistant and the Armstrong family's cook. Pilar was Daisy's nanny who woke up easily because she was startled by Ratchet sneaking in and kidnapping Daisy, making her feel very guilty. Masterman was Armstrong's servant. Marquez was Armstrong's driver, who was loaned money so he could become a car tycoon as he is now. Hardman was a detective assigned to the Armstrong case, but fell in love with the scapegoat, who was Suzanne, who was accused by the famous lawyer who is McQueen's father, and Michel, the conductor, was the one who lost his sister Suzanne. Finally, Linda Arden, Sonia's mother, who disguised herself as Mrs. Hubbard, was the mastermind behind all of this. So the answer to Ratchet's murder is that all the passengers did it together with a well-organized plan. Even though there were different detectives and expectations, all of this was Linda's idea, who recruited all the people hurt by Ratchet. Linda intended to turn herself into the police on the condition that the others would not be blamed. Poirot, who could not tolerate such crime, handed his pistol to Linda to shoot him, so Poirot wouldn't tell the police anything. Linda took the pistol, but did not shoot Poirot. Instead, she attempted to shoot herself, but the gun was empty. In short, the train resumed its journey with silent passengers. Ratchet was taken off at the next station, and Poirot decided to lie to the police that what the passengers did was not because they were all murderers. Finally, Poirot parted ways with the passengers and wished them peace for their actions. Poirot then received a new case in Egypt, a murder on the Nile, and the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.